Hello, hello, everybody. Natalie Cutler-Welsh here. How are you? Welcome back to Amplify Your Impact. Today, I'm super pumped to be talking to my amazing friend, Kristen Wonch, who is a money coach all the way from Costa Rica. Hey, Kristen, how are you?
So good. So good.
Hot and sunny over there. We are going to be talking today about one of my favorite topics, which you guys probably know, which is superpowers. Today, it's maximizing your superpower to amplify your wealth. So, Kristen, I know this is like your area of expertise, which is wealth, and my area of expertise, which is superpowers coming together. So, give us a little bit of intro about you, and then we'll dive into this topic.
Yeah. So my background is mostly finance. I used to be a trader many moons ago. It seems like a lifetime ago, but done so much, business strategy and working with entrepreneurs and specifically women. And I just love, helping women really fulfill all of their wildest dreams. And so have done a lot of business strategy in the past and now am focused specifically on wealth creation for women. And so one of the things I love about you is that, and why I think this relates so much is one of the things that I teach in my programs is, how to create wealth through investments. But what really feeds the funnel is income generation, right? And so getting really clear on what are the best ways for you to generate more money and to really step into and own that is so powerful. And I think that's something obviously you've done really well, and just getting clear on what it is for you, because for everybody it's different. So that's something that just really lights me up, is watching women really step into that and see the possibility of, what you're capable of when you really break through the limits of, your own glass ceilings, right?
I totally agree. I think you're right. A lot of women undervalue what they're worth, what they can do, the amount of money that they can achieve. In fact, the other day, last weekend, I was at a retreat and I made some comment about my money goal. And later my friend said to me, I was really surprised when you said that number out loud. I'm like, why? She's like, oh, because Kiwis, they don't like to talk about money. I'm like, oh, because I'm Canadian, but by birth, but I grew up in Canada, but I'm Kiwi by heritage. And I've just this fusion. And I'm like, why can't we talk about our money goals? Because it's like, oh no, we don't talk about that. So I love that you're bringing this into the spotlight. People can talk about what they want, in terms of money, but the impact that helps them to have. And something that we've both noticed is I love multiple revenue streams as well. I think it's super smart to have a couple of revenue streams coming in. I've got my coaching, I've got my doTERRA oils, and I think that's really smart. But what you've seen a lot of people do, and myself as well, is almost spread themselves too thin, or maybe pour themselves into areas that just, as I say, aren't their superpowers, and find things are too hard and then they give up.
Yeah, totally. And I think one thing you've done really well is it's not that you can only have one source of income, but to focus on, saying no to something right now doesn't mean it's a no forever, right? And so to focus on really doing one thing, aligning with what it is that, really lights you up, doing one thing really well and nailing that, and then, adding on and then adding on, instead of trying to do it all at once and just like getting overwhelmed and getting, we all have hit those burnt out stages, right? And so there can be multiple things that you're excited by without having like 100 things that you're currently actively trying to build from scratch, right? So
I think it's funny. I'm just smiling because I came back from this retreat and I already knew I wanted to not really simplify, but really hone in more on my superpowers, which is connecting people. That's really my love, my true joy. And I came back and I had already been thinking about it, but I decided that I was going to, when one door closes, another door opens. I was going to close down one of my offerings, which is my Thank You Club. And I just shared that with everybody yesterday. So I think it's so important for people to take a look, like just take a step back to reevaluate what you're doing. Does it bring you joy? Is it in your area of genius? Is it having the impact and definitely the income that you're wanting? And maybe if not, it might be time to close one door and possibly open another.
Yeah. And something I find I run into a lot with clients is the people not knowing which direction to go in. So like, how do you, for when you work with clients, like how do you allow people to decide, or how do you give them the tools to like figure out which direction? Like, I'm so excited about all these things. How do you know what's in alignment for you? That's something I run into a lot of questions.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm starting to ask people about their superpower, and we make that the starting point, because often if you look at someone's origin story of why they started their business, often they will start in their superpower. And then what happens is they get so busy and so burdened with 1,000 things on their to-do list that gets either watered down too much or it goes into overdrive. So what we want to do is make sure that people maximize, but they don't max out their superpower. So here's an example. Let's say someone starts their business because they love helping people, and their superpower is generosity. And so that's great, but all of a sudden what they'll notice is that they're giving away too much for free, right? So they're going, oh, well, I usually only do an hour, but let's do 90 minutes. Or if it's product based, they might be like, oh, and I'll sell you this, but I'll also give you this, and you also get a free notebook or whatever. Like generosity, which is their superpower, will actually become their Achilles heel. So I call that maxing out instead of maximizing their superpower. So it's a matter of coming back to what is your superpower, whether it's creativity, empathy, amiable, perseverance. That's another one. So you'll have people, I'm sure you've met some along your journey, where their perseverance is one of their superpowers. So they'll stick at it and they'll stick at it and they'll keep offering the same service or whatever, even if they don't love it. They're like, no, I must keep going. And they won't stop and think.
I've done that myself. That's, yeah. I mean, it's definitely, I can totally resonate for that. Yeah.
Is that something you did, like that you might have done yourself?
Oh yeah. Well, even running my last business, it was it was a co-working space, and what I was so passionate about was helping people grow. Like I love to help people grow their businesses, help people grow themselves, really, truly transform. And ultimately what I realized, 3 years into building this business, I was surrounded by this beautiful community, and we had so many amazing events and people were connecting, and I loved them to death. But not all of them were there for growth. Ultimately, a lot of them were there just for a desk. And it took me years, literally, to be like, this is not in alignment. And it was like a very painful and, confronting thing to be like, I actually have to change everything. I have to change everything, because when you're going down one path and you realize it's out of alignment, sometimes difficult decisions need to be made, and you don't have a clear path forward, right? It's not like, if I decide this is where I end up. So I think shedding some of those things, finding your superpower involves shedding the things that are not your superpower. And that can be a bit confronting, right? Like, because I've known you right through this whole journey before even the working space. And it's so interesting because you suddenly realized that you had become like an event manager and a co-working space, organizer, which is not what you signed up for. You want to, the growth and to help people. And they're like, no, I'm busy. I'm good. Don't you want my help? No. Well, yeah. And I mean, a lot of them, for many of them, the space was life-changing, right? And that having an impact in people's lives was really passionate. So it wasn't like everything about the space was totally misaligned. But ultimately, what my main job was to keep the lights on, like to keep a building going. And I didn't realize that getting into it. And so I think, just being really honest with yourself and really, really brutal about, ruthless, I guess would be a good word, about being able to shed, being willing to shed the things that aren't working. Like one actually big thing that I realized about myself only in the last week was that written communication is just not my forte. Like I can write a beautiful blog. It takes me fucking ages. I don't know if we're allowed to swear here, but I can write a beautiful blog. Like I can craft amazing emails. Like I can write things, but it doesn't light me up. But what does light me up is getting on calls like this with people like you, conversations, like verbal communication. And so I've been racking my brain in the last week of how do I wind off as much written communication as I can, outsourcing the writing of my blog and my emails, voice noting people, all the people I can, whether it's friends or business contacts. Like I'm such a fan of the voice note. It's because I love it. Like I can record a voice note when I'm on the go, and it's like, it feels more authentic to me. I can express myself in a way that written communication just doesn't jive. And so there are certain elements of that obviously you need to write people in some capacity, but not all the time. And there are ways to, shift my business structure and shift my life into stuff that resonates more for me, and allowing other people who love to write, who that's their zone of genius, that's their superpower, that's their magic, to step in and support me. which.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, expression, a lot of us have communication, or expression might be one of our superpowers, but we have different modes that we prefer to do it in. So I totally hear you on that. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll do a video, just a quick video, like a 30-second video for someone, and then I'll add it like as if it's an image just into the chat. And that's kind of that next level. So it's not a live FaceTime, but it's just still that next level of personal. And I much prefer that than writing, definitely.
Yeah, totally. And so
for those of you that are watching, I would love to hear, like, what kind of superpowers do we have, out there in the wide world for people? What do you consider to be one of those traits? So let me just give a definition. So obviously I'm not talking about like X-ray vision or super strength, although you might be super strong. I'm talking about that thing that you do naturally, right? That thing that you just do automatically. It's maybe maybe you're known for it. Like I am the go-to girl. I am known for connecting people. That is one of my superpowers. But the other one actually is enthusiasm, energy, which people always say to me, I love your energy. I love your enthusiasm. I, in fact, have the credentials because I got in 1985, I won this award back in school in Canada, which is the Enthusiasm Award. But I think, the important thing is when I go into overdrive and I'm too enthusiastic, like I'll talk way too fast if I'm doing a speaking gig or doing an interview. If I have so much energy that I think I can take on this client and that project, and I'll say yes to too many things. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying sometimes your strength, your superpower in overdrive can become your Achilles heel. So don't max it out, but you got to bring it back in to maximize it. So I'd love to hear from people. Go ahead and comment if you're live or later. Let us know what one or two of your superpowers might be. So Kristen, tell us a little bit about wealth, because most people that are in business, they want to have wealth. It is a goal. It's part of what you need to have, or else you're in hobby, you're not in business. So what are like some of the things that you see people do? Maybe some of the either a mistake or a habit that you would recommend that they do to gain more wealth?
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting one because people always want another strategy, right? Like they want the tool, they want the tactic, they want my favorite budgeting app, or they want to know how to invest. And those are all like really valid questions, but really so the main program that I run is a 12-week group program for women, and it's called Women's Money Mastery. And it doesn't just teach one specific tool or one specific strategy, although we go through all of that. We talk about ways to generate more income, like what is really what are the needle movers for you? What are the things that are really, really going to amplify and quantum leap you? And, this feeds in really well to this whole superpower idea, because it's going to be different for me as it is for you. And it has to be really in alignment, and you have to be willing to focus. So that's the income generation piece. And then, getting really intentional about your spending from a place of not restriction, but spending more on the things you love, right? Money is made to be spent. And it's not just not about just like being restrictive, because that puts you into, it's the same way like diets don't work, right? And then building wealth through investment. So then you use like amplifying your income, generating more money, and getting intentional about your spending. You use that piece to funnel the investments. But the whole thing, none of it works if you don't look at your limiting beliefs. And so mindset, and nobody wants to admit that mindset's a thing, but it's so funny because in my group program, we work on mindset. We start with crafting clear dreams. Like, what are you really playing for? And then we work on mindset, and then we start to get into that. We don't even touch the numbers until probably week 4. But it's funny because every single challenge that people come back with every week, it all comes down to their belief system. Like what are you telling yourself about? So, maybe you're afraid to make sales calls, or maybe you're feeling like a failure in business, or maybe you're confused about the marketing strategy you're using, or you're afraid to reach out to a big partner. And it's not that you need another strategy. I mean, you need the strategy, but what's mostly standing in your way is your limiting beliefs about what you're capable of doing. So, limiting beliefs that say, I can only make X amount if, my industry can only charge this much. My boss will only give me a 5% extra raise. COVID has hit my industry, and so there's no more opportunities. And so all of these belief structures, and this is true of me, this is not just true of like my clients, this is true of all of us. Whatever your ceiling is, whatever is the next level that you want to reach, what's standing between you and that level is not a missing strategy. It's almost always the thoughts in your head. And so being aware of the most valuable thing you can do is be aware of what those thoughts are and how they're impacting your actions. So what happens is we have thoughts that are, based on beliefs, right? So a thought is just a belief, or a belief is just a thought that you believe to be true, right? You're certain. It's like the thought that I can't play in the NBA, right? Like I'm 100% certain that's a fact. It actually doesn't matter if it's a fact or not. It's like, if I believe it to be true, that's the reality I'm creating. And so your beliefs drive your actions, because I'll never apply to be in the NBA, right? Like I'll never, and this is probably a silly example, but what it also means is if I believe I'm shitty at sales, I'm not going to go out and do any sales. I'm not going to, cold outreach to people. I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm going to, go for one pitch instead of going for 10, right? And what it means is that my results are a reflection of the non-actions that I'm taking, which are all driven from the beliefs. And so being aware of what those beliefs are, I know that might sound kind of vague, but the biggest thing for me that has really moved the needle for me is having coaches and people that can show me the roadmap, that can point out my blind spots, right? That can see the things I'm not seeing. So I
was just reading about that on your Facebook page this morning, actually, talking about that. So I love that you're highlighting that. Limiting beliefs is such an interesting topic. A lot of people have heard about it before because it is a bit of a buzzword, but it is a crucial ingredient. I totally agree. It's interesting. I'm just going to read out Kathy Sykes made a comment. So she's saying, "Hi, Kathy, thanks for writing in. Hello, I'm now retired, but want other flows of income. Natalie, you've really helped me this morning. Oh, good. I can talk, and I am going to use that in my new business. Really enjoyed this talk. Thank you so much, Kathy. But interesting, I want to show your next comment, Kathy. She says, fortunately, I don't suffer from limiting beliefs. I'd like to challenge you on that. I do believe everybody does. And, one way, if you think, oh, I don't have a limiting beliefs, is to listen if you ever say, I've met quite a few people who say this word. They say this phrase, easy for you. They'll be like, oh, well, easy for you, Kristen, because you live in Costa Rica, or easy for you because, you don't have kids. But it's like, okay, so now our limiting belief is I would make more money if I didn't have kids, right? So it's like, that's an interesting way to think, oh, well, I don't have limiting beliefs. Oh, where are you looking at somebody else and thinking easy for you, ... I know that for myself, the one that I've had for ages is if it's meant to be, it's up to me. Which is, if I want it done, I need to do it myself. And you were mentioning outsourcing before. I'm not a great outsourcer. Like I don't have a cleaner. I hire people sporadically, but I don't have a consistent VA. I do have an admin person here in Auckland with me now. But I'm very much a high performing Lone Ranger, which a coach actually pointed out to me. So I agree with you about sometimes we need someone else to look at our business and to look at our habits and our limiting beliefs with fresh eyes and just kind of hold the mirror up to us. So go ahead and comment, you guys, if you're having a bit of an aha moment, or if you want to be a little bit transparent and let us know what one of your limiting beliefs might be, whether it's directly about money or if it's just related to something else. Go ahead and comment.
Yeah. And I think to Kathy's point, like not all, suffering, she's saying, using the word suffering from limiting beliefs, like it doesn't always feel like we're suffering, right? Like it can't, and your belief there around, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. That could actually be, when you first said it, a very empowering belief, because you feel very much like you're responsible for creating your environment. And you're like, I can make things happen if I want. And so that can feel very empowering. So it doesn't have to be like this either or thing. Like beliefs aren't necessarily bad or good, but they do, whatever beliefs you're holding, they create your own reality. And so what it's creating for you, Nat, is that you have generated an incredible impact in your life. And you've also done it primarily alone, right? And so it's like there's this, and I have the same one. Like one of my beliefs is it's hard to find good help. It's hard to find good support. And so I can show you all the pieces of evidence over the years of all the interviews I've ever done, all the hires I've ever had that haven't worked out, and why it hasn't, and no one can do it as good as me. And so, I can give you evidence for why that's true, but ultimately you get to choose, like if it's only a limiting belief, if it's no longer serving you, right? So in a lot of ways, this belief serves us because we get to be amazingly independent and like create epic results on our own. And then you get to decide, like, is this serving me Or do I want to believe something different? Do I want to shift into now, my belief is I can find good help anywhere. Like I can find support anywhere. Yeah.
And I love that. I love, we call it flipping it or a reframe. And I also love how the limiting beliefs conversation is so intertwined with the superpower concept, right? Because if you look at your limiting belief, it's usually most often that your superpower has gone into overdrive. So me going, I'm a high performing Lone Ranger. If I want it done, I'll do it myself. Well, what happens is then I'll just be like doing way too many things by myself, not very productive, not spending all my time or as much time as I can in my favorite areas of genius, doing things like you said, writing the blogs or whatever, doing things that don't bring me joy. And that just makes life harder. So I think it's such a good opportunity. If you're watching this, you guys, if you think somebody else might benefit, please go ahead and comment, tag them, share it with someone, share it on your page. We just want to start this discussion of thinking about your life differently and thinking about, what is your superpower? Obviously, you've got more than one. What are some of your top 2 superpowers? I actually just added some superpower sessions. So remember, when one door closes, another door opens. I've just added superpower sessions to my little menu of how I help people. Normally, I only do a 6-session package, and I don't do a one-off, but I thought I'm actually going to do a superpower session as a one-off little Zoom coaching session with people who are really curious about identifying their top 2 superpowers and how they can hone into those and maximize them to amplify their impact or their income or their business or their life, whatever it might be, whatever the area is that they're really struggling with. Mm-hmm. And do you find, Kristen, in your work that even though you're a wealth expert, someone might be really struggling in the area of, let's say, relationship or parenting or business, but it often comes back to a very similar limiting belief?
Yeah, you know what? It's our beliefs create our whole environment. So often the core beliefs that we have feed into multiple different places. And one of my big things, with all of my clients and with the program that I run is we talk about all of the real stuff, right? Like you might come in and, very frequently people cry in the sessions, and not like I love to see clients cry, but it's like, that's really what's there for you, right? Like you're worried that you're going to be viewed as a failure because, your business isn't doing what you want it to do. And so I feel like, and this is, maybe a very feminine way to approach things, but you can't just talk about the numbers, right? Like you can't just talk about one thing in isolation, because we're whole human beings, right? With our mind that, you can't just separate how I think about business to how I think about relationships, because how, maybe it's the underlying belief that people are going to reject me that feed into both, right? And so you can see how that shows up in different ways. And just to know that it's totally possible to change your beliefs. And I love those sessions that you just mentioned, that I love the idea of that, because one big thing is it's really hard sometimes to identify what your superpower is, because sometimes, and I think particularly as women, often we try to downplay it. It's like, I'm really, really good at this thing, but like, I don't want to admit it to anybody, or I don't want to admit it even to myself. Like, I don't want to acknowledge that, like, I'm really good at that thing. So having somebody who can see an outside perspective, and this is true of, all coaching, but I love that gift of yours is like being able to be like, you're freaking great at that. And you really need to hone in, double down on that, and just giving people a permission slip and some direction and guidance to be like, this is it for you, like this is the thing, the magic maker.
Yeah, because it's so easy to go off path. So whether people are just starting out and they're like, I don't know what my superpower is, or I don't know how to monetize my superpower. So we can talk about maximizing it. We can talk about monetizing your superpower. And I want to do a shout out to Kathy, because, I love seeing women celebrate, being successful financially as well. I think often it's like men are happy to talk about how much money they make, but for women, it's not something celebrated. And she says, she's had a great success making a lot of money. She says serious money, doing something that she loved, which I think is amazing. So shout out to you, Kathy. That's super awesome. Yeah. So go ahead, you guys. We're going to wrap things up. We want to hear from you. What do you think your superpower is? Or what are you struggling with at the moment? Because I really do have this strong belief that whatever it is, that a problem you're struggling with, or something that you keep, that keeps coming up for you, maybe you're complaining about it to your friend or whatever it is, I bet you underneath it all, it's that maxing out your superpower or possibly watering it down. So what we want to do is I want to help you maximize your superpower to amplify your wealth. Kristen, let us know a little bit more about your program. When's that starting? How can they find out more?
Yeah, so my next round, I've just wrapped up one group of amazing women. Like, oh, I just love working with these women. And so just wrapped up one group program now, and I'll be kicking off the next one in early June. So I am open for applications at the moment. It's a 12-week group program designed to take you through everything around how to build and create wealth. So, if you have, feel like you aren't good with money, or you're not good with numbers, or you don't know how to create a system around it. You don't know what to do with the money. You're not making as much money as you want to be. You don't know what to do with the money once you get it. To really get into a place of, I'm super clear on my vision, on what my dreams are. I know exactly what I'm playing for. I'm confident in my ability to build and create wealth. I know exactly how to generate more money, and I'm going after it. I'm very clear about where I'm spending my money, and I feel the ability and confidence to spend freely. And I know exactly how to create wealth through investments, which is the piece that's like the real leverage, right? When you get your money making money for you, that's when everything changes, because you can only do so much if you're always at the bottleneck, right? You can only do so much if you're always trading hours for dollars. It's really, you want to expand beyond yourself so that you have freedom. And ultimately, having more time, having more freedom and flexibility, and just not stressing about money. Like, I just want so many women, like, I think the two biggest things I see with women, and I love that Kathy's like so confident around money, because it is the exception to the rule. Like, it's not as common as I would love it to be. I just want more women to know that they can dream bigger. Like, their dreams are not limited. You can actually create anything you want in the world. You really can. And it's not, finance doesn't have to be scary or complicated. Like, one of my favorite clients, like she messages me like every couple of days telling me about we call them hot money dates, creating this ritual every week where you sit down with your money and you get excited by it. You're like, I get to have a glass of wine or a cup of cacao, and I get to have a dance party with my money, because it's like, it's doing amazing things for me. It's such a powerful tool.
I literally am in the habit, and I do this on purpose. When my money comes in, I will, like, I just got paid for a speaking thing yesterday. So I just had a bunch of money come in. And before I go and transfer it into my tax account and my personal account, I will literally like send it some love. Like, I'll be like, hello. And sometimes I'll screenshot it, but, I'll just send it some loving energy. And it's just, we need to do these things. We need to celebrate our wins. We don't have to do it all over publicly, but at least for ourselves, when we do have good money coming in, it's like really honor that, and then the more will flow. But I do think staying in your zone of love and your joy and genius, staying in your superpower, not going into overdrive, these are things that are definitely going to help. So Kristen, before we wrap up, Costa Rica. So what is one of the best things about living there?
That I can surf every day. Like, it's just, that is, it's not my superpower. it's the hardest thing I've ever tried to learn, but it's where I feel most at home. Like, it just really lights me up. And I think the more you can create an environment that just really gives you the things that light up your soul, the better life becomes, and a lot of that stuff doesn't cost money, right? It's just alignment.
Amazing. So good. All right, you guys, thank you for joining us. We can't wait to come back and see your comments. Message me. I'm going to get a link sorted, but message me if you want to learn about the Superpower session, and you can book that in with me, and we'll be in touch. Until next time, you guys, remember to up your brave, say what you want, and make it happen. See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.